This morning, we have two themes. We have peace and impatience, and three passages that were read. And honestly, after what Raina shared, I don't even know if we need a sermon, but But having like two themes and three passages is sort of like, like 4 o'clock when you're standing in the kitchen and you've got all of this stuff in the fridge and all this stuff in the cupboard and probably more stuff in the freezer downstairs, and you go, yeah, but like, what am I going to make out of all of this, right? And that's sort of the way I felt as I was preparing this week. It's like, well, there's all of this stuff. How do I make one sermon out of all of this? And I want to start with impatience. And I want to start with impatience this morning because often when I preach, I'm talking about things that I know something about, but I'm good at impatience. This is an area where I've got significant expertise. And it was very tempting in some ways to defend impatience as a really good thing. People don't defend impatience enough.
He asked his kids for 3 words to describe him.
Impatience will be in there somewhere, yes. So, because impatient people get stuff done. Right? Patient people have committee meetings. And as we all know, the purpose of committee meetings is to make sure that nothing actually happens. Right? Impatient people go out there and get stuff done. And so part of me goes, like I've done a lot of things in my life, partly because I'm just impatient and haven't had the opportunity to, haven't had the patience to wait for someone else to do it, so I'm just going to go and do it myself. Which is not how you should do pastoral work, but it is, unfortunately, the way I do pastoral work. But I also had to realize, as I was thinking about impatience this week, that I'm really not impatient for the wrath that is to come. I'm not looking forward to the unquenchable fire that John the Baptist was talking about, because I sort of like it here, and I'm okay. I mean, the world is a mess, but it's not that bad a mess that I want it all to burn. I have days like that where I want it all to burn, but mostly not. So it's this tricky thing, and part of it also is working deliberately on not wanting unquenchable fire for some people, because sometimes that's an effort. Sometimes there's people that I really want unquenchable fire for. And I do, deep down inside, and I have to keep working at going, no, that's not where I should be going. I shouldn't want unquenchable fire for my enemies and all of them bad people out there. And it's important, as we think this through, to remember that John the Baptist was just flat out wrong here. Right? He was hoping for a Messiah who was going to come with the pitchfork in one hand and the torch in the other, and burn and stab and kill all of the enemies, and that whole thing. And he ended up with like Jesus of Nazareth. And if he'd have lived long enough to see that, he might have been profoundly disappointed. Because Jesus ended up on a cross, and no sign of burn it all down. And so part of it is just this winnowing fork is in his hand, but he's not quite using it the way we were hoping it. Part of it also is to recognize that, at least for many of us, we are regularly battling our own internal John the Baptist. That this is part of the trick of following Jesus, is to try not to follow John the Baptist. That there's this little dangerous little monster inside of me that wants that wants to go, yeah, John had it right. We got to do that. And to recognize that yes, it's there, and yes, it's a dangerous little monster, and it does not deserve to be fed. And it does not deserve to be released on the world. Because John the Baptist, John the Baptist is out there, it says in the wilderness. It's actually like one of the nicest parts of Israel is where he is. And the rest of Israel are gone. That doesn't look like wilderness. But anyway, if you haven't been there, you can imagine as wilderness. So he's out there, and people are coming from all over to be baptized, and the Pharisees and the Sadducees are coming out to be baptized, and he doesn't want them to be baptized. He doesn't want them to repent, right? They come out to be baptized, and he says, "You brood of vipers, who told you to flee from the wrath that is to come?" Which is not the way you encourage people. I mean, he's deliberately trying to stop them from coming, because he wants the wrath that is to come on them. Right? It's like, no, I don't want you people here. I don't want you to repent. I want you to burn. And so, sort of John the Baptist, right, is giving us a bad example, right? And Jesus gave us a much better one of, yeah, he had woe to you. He had his days like that too, right? But for the most part, he was trying to include people in the movement rather than kick them out. Which is, I think, where, in a strange kind of way, Isaiah and Psalm add to this picture. Now, the Isaiah passage and the Psalm passage we read were mostly about kingship, right? Which is all about the power and might part of all of this. But if you were listening to either of those pictures, and fairly consistently throughout the Old Testament, the king has basically two tasks. And the first is national defense, very, very minimal national defense, right? And balancing the scales. And the idea well, let's face it, in the world, is that if you think about the scales of justice, and you think about rich people and poor people, the rich people have got their thumbs already on the scale. So it doesn't start out balanced. Right? The people who've got money for good lawyers, right, and really good lawyers, or in many situations who have money for judges, right, they've got their thumb pretty firmly on the scale already. And the job of the king is to actually get it back to balance, and maybe even the other way a bit. Right? The job of the king is to defend those without power. And it doesn't necessarily mean the wrath that is to come, but for the wealthy. So this chaff that was going to burn with unquenchable fire in John the Baptist is actually the rich. That's the chaff he was hoping was going to burn with unquenchable fire. That was the people who the Pharisees and the Sadducees represented. That was their group. And they saw the world in purity sorts of ways. And purity in ancient Israel, right, in Jesus' day, was only something accessible by the rich. They couldn't imagine. Right? Like a poor person simply couldn't be pure, because it required too much effort. You needed servants. Right, to do all the things you couldn't do in order to be pure. And so we also have to always bring the economic into this. It's also important in our picture of all of this, to rethink the winnowing fork. Now, a winnowing fork basically would have looked like a pitchfork. Right? So I don't know, again, how many of you ever used a pitchfork? Oh, so right, some sense of what a pitchfork looks like. Right? And one side of the pitchfork image, I'm guessing, is from old Frankenstein movies. Right? The people with their pitchforks and their axes are going out there to destroy Frankenstein. Because the nice thing about pitchforks is they're really nice and pointy, and you can get some serious persuasion done with a pitchfork. But that's ultimately not what a winnowing fork or a pitchfork is for. So we have to. So what's winnowing? Does someone know what winnowing is?
Is it when you still to separate the wheat grain from the...
Good. So imagine a flat floor, which is in Israel is a rare thing. Okay, just like in West Virginia, right? You got a plan for a flat floor, and there's a post in the center, and you throw your grain onto this round piece, and then there's an oxen walking around the edge, and it's pulling a piece of lumber right? That's sort of between it and the center post. And the lumber rolls over top of the grain, and it helps separate out the wheat from the chaff, because, right, wheat is covered in this hard outer surface, chaff, and it's not digestible by human beings, so you gotta get rid of it before you can eat the wheat. But that only separates them. So what the winnowing fork does is the farmer is standing there, and he or she takes the winnowing fork and tosses the grain in the air, and the idea is that the chaff then blows away. So you want your threshing floor to be somewhere up high, so that, or somewhere with a good breeze. So it's very peaceful work, and it's very patient work, because it takes a lot of time just to be, you're walking around the circle, and then, oh, there comes the beast, so you got to sort of move out of the way, you're just going to keep going around and around, and you go in there and you just flip some more grain into the air, and the wind comes and blows the chaff away, and you just do this for hours, every day, like all through harvest season. And the idea is that you separate out what is useful, what would grow, what you can eat, from what you can't. So, right, so when you think winnowing fork, don't think old Dracula movies or old Frankenstein movies. Right? Think about, people just standing in the circle and patiently flipping grain into the air and watching the chaff blow away. And this is the process of becoming a disciple. That every day, right, we do this. We go, what part of myself needs to be blown away? What part of who I am, I just need to let it go. Just let it, And so I just have to take this winnowing fork every day to myself and go, yeah, I'm just gonna see what's worth growing here, or what's worth eating here, what nourishes me, what sustains me, and what parts of myself I just need to go. And the same thing is what we do in the world around us. That we live in a society that has lots of messages and lots of expectations, and this time of year, lots and lots of advertising about all sorts of things, whether it's buy this or give to them or whatever. I don't know if your mailbox is as full as mine, but it probably is. Right? And so we do the same thing. Right? We take and we look at it and we winnow it. We say, yeah, this is worthy of my time. This is worthy of my money. This is worthy of my energy. And this is chaff. These people who want my money, right? They're going to spend it all on, well, more fundraising. And there's good money in fundraising. Just fundraising. Not actually doing anything with it, just, right? I've met somebody who makes like $60,000 a year, and all she does is fundraise. Doesn't actually do anything with the money except raise more. Well, that, yeah. And, maybe that's the best thing that you should be doing, but, like at some point we in our time, in our energy, in what we do, we just do this all of the time. This job of the winnowing fork. This job of just peacefully trying to figure out where it is we're going. Because it's difficult to get to peace, right? Impatience is easy. Trust me, right? Because there's always something to be impatient about. There's always something about ourselves, or about our world, or about our spouse, or about our kids that we are just ready to, stick a fork in it. But that's not what the winnowing fork is for. It's for just letting it go. Letting it go and let God slowly transform us into something that's healthy, into something that's whole, into something that's worth keeping. And maybe, right? Maybe once in a while it requires some impatience. Right? That you can't be too patient with yourself. Sometimes you just got to actually get rid of some stuff. But it's very hard, really it is, to get to peace using impatience. said, for the connection between means and ends. And if you are impatiently waiting for peace, you're never going to get there because you're going to keep being impatient. Trust me, I know this. So that's the way it is at Christmas, right? It's this process, and all year long, it's this process. Just toss it in the air, see what's whole, see what's healthy.